some happier news. 50 years ago this week, August 5th, 1966, the Beatles released Revolver. Obviously called one of the best Beatles albums, sometimes their best album, sometimes even the best album from anybody ever. Obviously a great record, but what do you guys think about it? Is it your favorite? Is it great? What do you feel?
I am, of course, massively in love with this record. It's a great classic record, and I kind of get the idea of calling it like the best Beatles album, even though it's not my personal favorite, which might be the White Album probably. It's like that middle ground Beatles, where if you prefer the early stuff or you prefer the late stuff, it's like a perfect compromise kind of between that. So it just seems like it's the easy one to say, this is my favorite. I prefer the early stuff, but I like some of the more experimental stuff, or vice versa. I think that's why it's like the easy one that just we can all agree is fantastic.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. There's obviously so much that can be said about an album like this, and it's not my personal favorite. Similar to what Gabe said, I think mine would probably also be the White Album, but it's probably top three. And to be honest, between early Beatles and this kind of middle period, it's definitely the one record that I can throw on at any time. It's got probably one of my all-time favorites, maybe top 5 Beatles songs, And Your Bird Can Sing on there. So I'm kind of always coming back to this record. What about you, Dan?
And Your Bird Can Sing is one of your top 5 favorite Beatles songs. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that's a little weird.
I don't know. It's just one that I've always enjoyed. It's just like a really great pop song. I love the guitar line, the little guitar solo that actually Paul, I believe, played. It's just one. I don't know. It's like one of those songs that I can always hear, and I never get tired of it. You know what I mean?
I was just like expecting him to say. I was wondering, will he say "Tomorrow Never Knows" or will he say Eleanor Rigby at the end of that sentence?
No.
You may be the only person in the world whose favorite song on Revolver is "And Your Bird Can Sing."
That's what makes me a unique Beatles listener.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, for me, I you guys both kind of covered it. It is like that perfect middle ground Beatles. That's not a negative thing, but yeah, it's the best of the early and the best of the later Beatles. It's one of my favorite. It's probably top 2 or 3. White Album probably also my favorite. I think Revolver has the coolest album cover, though. Sgt. Pepper gets that title a lot, but I think the Revolver cover is just like so much cooler.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, but. Yeah, I mean, I re-listened to it a little bit this week in preparation for this short discussion we're going to have, and it's so awesome because it's like they're entering, that psychedelic era of the Beatles, but it doesn't sound dated at all because it's not like full-fledged psychedelia, you know what I mean? It's like, it sounds just forever fresh, and it almost does this cool thing where it's like, I don't know, like maybe John and George were like all about going psychedelic and Paul was like a little more reserved about it, but it always has reminded me of like Twin Peaks or something, where like even the sort of normal quote unquote scenes are just as surreal as like the really crazy scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the context of this, all the amazing experiments that are going on in this record, a song like And Your Bird Can Sing or For No One, some of these more like traditional poppy songs, even like Yellow Submarine and stuff, they sound super psychedelic in that context.
Yeah, and I would kind of piggyback on that and sort of say that songs like And Your Bird Can Sing or She Said, they have that flavor that goes all the way back to like Please Please Me, but there's definitely like a maturity, and that's something I've always loved about the Beatles. Like every record you listen to, you can just hear that their songwriting is becoming, more advanced, more mature, more complex in various ways. And this album really is like the culmination of like that early period, kind of peaking, and then kind of a foreshadowing of what's to come next.
Yeah, can we talk just for a second about how this is maybe the worst album ever mixed in stereo, though? Like Eleanor Rigby is complete. Like the
who goofed on that? Like,
oh my god! I get it was like new technology. People kind of thought it was a novelty at the time and everything, but like, come on, you can do better than that. I'm glad we finally have the mono mixes.
Like Paul's voice starts in stereo and then immediately gets panned.
It jumps. Yeah. God, it's so bad.
I don't know, Dan, do you know anything about this? But like, was it common to listen to music with headphones at this time
That's
at all?
That's a good question.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that like headphones were fairly expensive, and they weren't that like necessary because there was no portable music. I think you used them in radio stations, and that was about it. It's like the record player was like a communal thing at the time. I think headphones definitely existed, but I don't think they were nearly as common. So yeah, maybe that's part of the problem, is it doesn't sound that awful outside of headphones.
Right, because like I think, like you said, the novelty of like having two speakers and stuff like that. Like if you're listening to it, without headphones on, you're really not going to notice that he gets panned to the side like that.
And in 1966, most people still had mono setups, so your average person never even knew until 1989 when the first CD masters came out, and for whatever reason they chose those god-awful stereo mixes. But thankfully we finally have the mono readily available.
I don't want to like incite a riot or anything, but who has the strongest material on this album? Paul, John, or even George?
Well, my answer. John Lennon has the strongest in every Beatles record.
Oh my God.
I don't know about that.
I think it's I like Paul a lot, but it's like it's Paul all the way until Tomorrow Never Knows happens, you know what I mean? And then it's like that's like at least evens it out, if not edges it toward John for me. I mean, like what I love about this record is that it's like it's like you were listening to the Beatles their whole career. You like loved Rubber Soul, you loved where they were going. And you listen to this and you can kind of tell that like something's like a little different, something's changing a little bit. And then Tomorrow Never Knows just like blows your fucking head off, like I'll give it to John on this one.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty close all around. I would even say that George has a pretty good showing here. Maybe Love You Too is not everybody's favorite, but I don't think it really takes too much away from the album or anything. But I think I would say John probably wins this one.
John, confirmed the best Beatle.
From Metafork Music.
Well, until the album after this, which is like basically a Paul solo album, but maybe we'll talk about that one next year.
Yeah, maybe.
Every year we're going to talk about a Beatles record at this rate.
A 50th anniversary.
To hear the rest of our discussion, check out our website, metaforkmusic.com, or search us out on iTunes, Metafork Music.